Chico's gonna give you what? Rev is gonna give you what? Ben is gonna give you what? All three are gonna give you the Big D. Chico's gonna give you what? Rev is gonna give you what? Ben is gonna give you what? All three are gonna give you the Big D. Chico, Rev, and Ben, yep, they're at it again. Breaking down the team, putting stats up in your head. Nothing left unsaid, they're leaving it all on the field. Just like the favorite team, raising 2 cups and with shield. The knowledge is so real for a trio so true. They're representing the gray, red, white, and blue. And you love them too. That you can't deny, so just one time, let me hear Dallas till I die. Chico's gonna give you what? Rev is gonna give you what? Ben is gonna give you what? All three are gonna give you the Big D. Chico's gonna give you what? Rev is gonna give you what? Ben is gonna give you what? All three are gonna give you the Big D. Soccer podcast? Huh.
Well, welcome everyone. Tonight we are live to break down a bunch of news for FC Dallas fans from this past week, including a draw at New York City FC, a loss at Houston, and the firing of head coach Luchi Gonzalez. We're still kind of digesting all of this and a press conference from this afternoon. So you are in the right place to ask your questions, vent your frustrations, and make sense of what this means for FC Dallas. What is it? Was it a mistake? Did Luchi, was he treated fairly? Will Marco Ferruzzi do a better job? It's time to break it all down and take your questions and comments live here on Big D After Dark. And we're live. Welcome to Big D After Dark, live here on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you for joining us this evening as we get right into some great FC Dallas news. Of course, I'm Nathan Hill. Follow me at Nathan J. Hill on Twitter. There in the middle tonight is our buddy Jose Carmona at El Chico Carmona.
Hello.
And there on the end is our good friend back tonight to break down this news with us, Tommy LaBeouf, sorry. And what's your? I have to remember what's your handle on Twitter? I don't.
Oh, it's Tom_FC Dallas.
Boom. Got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
You got it right, LaBeouf though.
LaBeouf, good. Great to have you, Tommy. Thanks for joining us. Kind of last minute. Ben's not with us tonight, so we're gonna get right into it because it was a news-packed week. And so, by the way, if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, with us, share your comment, your reaction to all the news, to Luchi's dismissal, to the team's loss against Houston, to the press conference today. If you caught the press conference, we're not going to show any clips or anything. We're just going to talk today. We're going to vent. We're going to make sense of this together, all right, and have some fun together. Of course, recapping the week really quick, it was a crucial week for FC Dallas's playoff chances, and it didn't quite go as planned. Of course, they traveled up to New Jersey, played in the Red Bull Stadium in Harrison, and pulled out a draw against NYCFC, which was a crazy and kind of a fun game. It was fun. I mean, if you just wanted to see a bunch of goals, FC Dallas stuck around. It was fun. And in a way, even if you wish the team got 3 points, but then they went to Houston, a must-win match. And despite a late a brace from Hyder Obrian, it was really a poor effort from the team. Just not good enough in a crucial match in Houston.
Against your top rival.
And you could have at least had your hands on the Texas Derby for the year, and that slipped away. And really, you were done in by a former player, Fafa Pico. Oh, man, just felt personal. Fafa was playing like this was personal.
And he was boasting about it after. So he certainly was throwing salt in the wounds. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Felt it. It was not pretty. And just, So you knew the situation hasn't been great for Luchi this season. And there's been some really tough moments. But even I was a bit surprised about the timing of the firing. I felt like, especially with the loss, playoffs are probably not really a good reality for FC Dallas. So why not see Luchi out through the end of the year, then make your analysis and see if the team improves over these final games, if there's something to pick up from and build upon. But Dan Hunt and company, I guess, decided no, they've seen enough. Maybe there's more to the story that we don't know about. But ultimately, Luchi was fired during a Dallas Cowboys game, which is an interesting nugget to think about.
While they were winning.
Yeah.
So let's just start with your base reaction, like Jose first and Tommy. Like when you heard the news, what were your instant thoughts, your instant reaction?
Honestly, I'm gonna tell you right now, I was stunned because, this late in the season, you might as well let him finish it out. You have a clean, his contract's over. We're not gonna pick it up. Everyone parks. Everyone's understandable. We didn't make the playoffs. They don't even have to come up with a reason. So my personal take on this is all about money, and I don't mean, Luchi's money. I mean, the fans are dejected right now following the Houston match because, let's face it, from the New York City match and the Houston match, we needed 4 points. You only got a point against New York City, so those other 3 had to come from Houston, and they didn't play with the heart and fire of a derby. They didn't. It wasn't there not until it was too late. And anyway, my point is,
yeah, I hear you.
You've got 5 home games left. You're worried that the fans are going to show up, so you kind of want to pitch them on this. Oh, hey, we're still in it. Yes, Luchi's, screwed the pooch. We're going to bring in the guy that's going to, win those games and get us in the playoffs. And I think it's just a Hail Mary basically saying, don't give up on us, show up to the home games. Because I think, honestly, the bottom line is that's what FC Dallas lives off of is the gate. And they can't afford to have people not show up. So otherwise, what's the point in firing Luchi? You could have just waited it out and had a clean break, and nobody would have complained. Nobody would have said, fans would have complained, but I'm just saying you would have been in the right. Mm-hmm. And there would be no defense for Luchi. And now you just went and made a big clusterfuck out of it. Congratulations.
Yeah, I was shocked as well. I've been critical of Luchi. I'll be the first one to say that. But listening to all the media and just talking to season ticket holder that sits next to me, he kind of keeps me calm when I'm at the fan level and I'm very passionate and I'm getting angry and stuff. And he'll say, well, look at the roster that Luchi's dealing with. He doesn't have competition at right back. He doesn't have really a superstar on the team. I mean, people can say Pepe is one. He's an upcoming star. Yeah. He's also needs service, right? And Luchi's been dealing with injuries. We started the season with Hedges hurt. We had Paxton hurt. Ferrero was hurt. Mm-hmm. We started the season left back with Vargas and right back with Jader. We started with Manjoma at right back. In fact, the first game, we didn't even have a right back. We played 3 center backs in the back line. That's how bad the roster was. Mm-hmm. And you had Brisson starting. Brisson is a budget back. I mean, in my opinion, you may disagree, and I think even Martinez may also be a budget. Neither of these guys are superstars, in my opinion. Martinez hasn't been that great, I think, this year. But the thing is that all year the common thing is that we can't defend, and even at home, we can't even get a victory at home. A lot of bad marking all year. I have no problem with Jesus Ferreira and Paxton and Pepe. Love Pepe, but the whole group as a whole, this roster is. Dan Hunt has not done a great job of setting Luchi up for success. He set him up for failure. And to fire him, this is a PR move, guys. This is all it is. This is a PR move. We got rid of the coach. We're going to bring in Ferruzzi. He's been with the club for a while, and we're going to win. And you know what? We might make the playoffs because of the way the playoffs are set up for MLS. You can be pretty bad and make the playoffs like we did last year or the year before and get that one lucky lottery draw and play a good game. But the truth of it is this roster is terrible. I mean, this is not a roster built for a professional major soccer league. And if anybody's in the fault, it's Dan Hunt.
Okay, I like it.
Okay, I just want to add on Brazan, just because Tommy brought it up.
Okay, that's fine.
And I want to point out
the handballs, the fouls, the late tackles, getting beat from behind. That's what I saw from Brazan this year,
And I'll tell you
he gave like 3 goals. Yeah, go ahead.
And I'll tell you what I saw is that after Brazan got the suspension, FC Dallas started allowing more goals than they have the entire season. Their last 5 games, they've allowed 12 goals. That's since Brazan hasn't been playing.
Right.
You can and I don't want to say it's not
he's
Brazan.
probably better than we have now, but still,
it's probably a combination of Brazan and Jimmy not playing more so. Yeah. But the drop off is huge, and I'm sorry. But you can't tell me that Hedges is healthy, and you can't tell me that Jose is healthy, and they're worse than Brazan out there.
No, I agree with you.
And that's my problem. My whole point with this is Brazan
plays a good game, but there's always that one play,
Brazan is not the guy that's going to anchor your back line like a healthy Matt Hedges, and that's really the only knock against him. He's a number 2 guy.
Right.
And he's been the number 1 guy, and he's been getting outshined by Tafari every match.
Right.
That's fine. That's fine because I'm just saying I know fans are against Brazan, but the fact that he's not out there has really hurt this team, and I think people should acknowledge that hey, he's not
on the depth chart. He's not the bottom. I agree with you there.
And I think the fact that you're getting injured players out there, that means the team's already playing. How does that affect the confidence of the players ahead of you, knowing that you've got a wounded man in the back line?
And I want to say another thing. I mentioned Manjoma. I didn't mean any disrespect to Manjoma. He's very raw. He hasn't had the minutes. He hasn't had competition at right back. Where's the skins on the wall to be starting on the first game of the year? He doesn't have the skins. I believe he will be a good player.
And they gambled on Manjoma, and the problem is sometimes when you throw someone into the Lions, sometimes that backfires on you because they get burnt enough, they start losing that confidence, and I think that's what we all saw. Is we all agree Manjoma has talent, but he lacked the confidence to go out there and perform. You saw him when he played in North Texas; he looked next level. FC Dallas, you didn't see any of that, and you could tell that he was a nervous person out there. And that's something that maybe a year from now that'll be gone, but we don't know. Sure. That's the problem with playing young players is you got Pepe, who, grabs the bulls by the horn, and then you got the guys that get trampled by that.
The other thing is, if it's coaching, so I went and looked back and say, what did we do wrong on this first goal of the game? Was it coaching? Was it players? Did a player get beat? And it looked tactically like we had too many people far up the field when Houston had the ball. And I saw Fafal Picard, whatever, beat Che because Che was actually on the attacking side of the field, and they had the ball. So you're setting yourself up to get beat by Picard down the line.
Counters, yep.
Yeah, and then we had 6 Houston attackers against 4 FC Dallas, leaving 1 open on the thing. And the other thing is the cross pass went right in front of the keeper, and it wasn't very hard. He could have just grabbed it, and he just watches it bounce to another player. Keeper, come on. I mean, we're pretty bad at keeper as well. I mean, apparently we need a better keeper.
Yeah, I think Rev agrees on this. Is the one thing that Jimmy brings to the table is positioning and leadership and knowing where to set himself up for major success. And I think that's where you can't overcome that. The Brazilian kid is talented, but his awareness is all over the map, and his positioning hasn't been the best. He's gotten beaten on some stuff that you're like, oh, I can't believe he wasn't, he's just not a big player. He's athletic, but he's not a big, long player that can make up for being out of position like, Jesse used to be able to make up for bad positioning because he was so big and long. But when
For me, it was just very disappointing. It was 5 minutes in the game and we're already down 1-0. When you, I mean, you shouldn't get beat like that.
Jimmy has the same dimensions, less athletic, but he makes up for it with his awareness and his positioning, which is second to none.
And we know keepers, like, they mature later. Like, the best keepers are in their 30s. They've seen a lot, and this kid is young. He's thrust into this tough spot.
Well, he's essentially a prospect.
Yeah.
But remember, Marr was really a third on our chart for the longest. He never played, and then it took Jesse Gonzalez getting kicked out, and who else?
Jesse Gonzalez was considered a young keeper, and Jesse Gonzalez is like 3-4 years older than the Brazilian kid.
Yeah.
Think about that. Think on that.
But yeah, I don't know that we have good competition at keeper as well. I mean, I'm just trying to point out that I think that this team is a budget team.
We had Chris Seitz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a lunch pail guy, and he got the job done.
Well, and so by the way, viewers, if you have reactions, comments, if you want to share how you reacted to the news of Luchi Gonzalez's firing, share them in the chat. We just got to
share them in the chat, and don't just share them. If you got a vent, let us know. I mean, if you're upset, you're disappointed, you're angry, you got thing to say to the Hunts, let it out. We want to hear it.
Yeah. And our friend here, Durf in Snyder, says, "Man, we are missing Nelson and Hollingshead." And so, let's start out with this, just building off of that comment. Like, so you can make a couple of arguments, right? We can make an argument, and certainly for those of us who have been following the team, writing about the team closely, we've had our frustrations with Luchi. Among those are, coming out games, getting this team coming out, and they just flat-footed, slow, having to make 3 subs at halftime to kind of get back into the game, not adjusting, it seems like, to other teams' tactical issues, or not just being, like, doing the scouting work and being like, maybe our tactic isn't going to be the best against this particular team in this particular situation. How do we adjust? How do we get the right configuration of players? I don't know if he's overthinking it or if it's just his inexperience. So that's one side. The team hasn't gotten the results. And at some point it is on the coach as much as it's on the players and so on. But on the other side, too, we can argue, too, which is an interesting argument, that, Luchi was never given a fair shake, especially this season, but for 2 big factors. The departure of a huge number of players, including Thiago Santos 2 weeks before, or whatever, week before the season started. Redo Ziegler, a leader in the locker room, and a great penalty kick provider, but also Michael Barrios, Fafa Pico. Like, you had guys depart that were veteran presence with the team. You had guys come in who were younger, unproven, needing to adjust, and so on and so forth. So you had a lot of turnover. We didn't even mention 2 right backs, and Tanner Tessman and Dante Seeley, but you also have injuries this season, which have been devastating. You start out the season without Jesus Ferreira. Paxton Palmaco's is working his way back. You've got most of the back line have been out at some point or another. Right now, missing your starting left back, your duo, your starting duo, you expected, like a Matt Hedges and Jose Martinez, have been, just been injured, not been able to be together. You're missing your starting goalkeeper right now. It's just, and you've had international call-ups. So you have this other side on Luchi's favor. You can say, what do you expect a coach to do? Like, to be a miracle worker? To, like, do like the old Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi, and, like, heal everybody's injuries with some kind of mind trick, Jedi mind trick or something, so there's 2 sides to this, and I think it's tough because on one hand we saw, like, plenty of moments where, like, Luchi, you got to be better. Like, you got to get more out of these guys. But you've also seen, on the other hand, a roster that really hasn't been good enough. And I didn't even mention Franco Jara, So what are you guys feeling? I mean, is it a little both and, or are you in one camp or the other?
I'm more on the roster. We don't have a superstar on the team. I think that the defense is very weak right now. I've been very critical of Acosta on the attacking, because I feel like whenever he's on the attack, he's going to shoot it. He shoots it from far away, and you have all these peppy and skilled players that are scorers. And every time Acosta gets the ball, he's shooting. Why is he a DP? He didn't even play against the U.S. He played maybe like 10 minutes in Honduras.
Yeah.
He's a great defender. I think he's a good defender, but is he worth the DP money?
I actually have an answer for that. Although this does not justify him skying them, which to me is a signal that somebody else should be doing it. But I remember when Pareja was the coach, he'd have Ulloa do that all the time. And I remember someone asked him on one of the, I don't know who, and they asked him about that, and the answer was that you want your deep line midfielders to take those long shots, so that if they get close, if they force a save, if they force a reaction, then the defense has to account for you, and the defense has to come out and account for you.
Right, but you have to get the ball on goal, on target.
But the point is, I'm just saying, that's why Costa keeps taking the shots. It's just he never even comes close to threatening. So it's like, why do you continue to have him be the guy taking that shot when he can't even hit the broadside of a barn?
Right, and there's also such thing as a service, right? A lob into the box. I've never seen him lob it into the box. So, that to me falls on the coaching. The players have to fall into the coach plan. And if that's his plan, then I think that's a foul, because I don't think he scored one goal maybe like 3 years ago.
I wanted to add my answer to the whole Luchi thing is, and the reason I think he should have seen out the season, by the way, is he should have gotten a get a jail out of free card, simply because I know people are saying that he was set up to fail, but it's actually worse than that.
Mm-hmm.
He basically was getting his legs cut out from under him. Let's face it. You go through the preseason, you got Thiago Santos, you have no concerns about, you're going to run a single pivot, by the way, with Thiago Santos as your destroyer, proven destroyer, and then 2 weeks before the start of regular season, 2 whole weeks before the start of the season, he's sold, and there's no replacement. Keep in mind that Quinones didn't get signed till like 2 months after Thiago was gone.
I love Santos. He used to save us on all these defense.
My point is,
you're
sitting there, you're Luchi, and you're like, I got a single pivot defender that can protect my back line. I don't have to worry about that. That's not where I'm focused. I'm focused on finding a backup for him, by the way, or someone that might pair up with him on the side. But that wasn't a concern. Now, 2 weeks before the regular season, boom, you cut out his legs and go, okay, sorry, we're going to take your best defensive midfielder. You got Acosta, you got Tessman, you got plenty of kids.
It's not just the coach, though. It's the fans who buy the tickets to go to the games and expecting to see.
I understand that. But then, who was his replacement? One of his replacement was Tessman. All right? Well, by the way, Tessman gets sold midseason when you bring in Quinones, who would have been his likely partner.
Right.
I'm just saying, it's every time that Luchi looked like he was going to get ahead, you cut out his leg, and then fans are demanding, well, he should be able to recover from that. No, it's hard. It's hard enough dealing with your injuries, with Jesus being gone, with the international absences. You have to also account for players that are going to be yanked out of your roster and your plans and say, okay, yes, we got the next up, next in line, fill that guy in. It doesn't work that way. There's a drop-off from a guy like Santos to anybody that was underneath him. There was no other player that was a destroyer at his level that could protect the back line the way he could. That's why we've been seeing 2 defensive midfielders for the rest of the season, and it took a long time to basically unhamper, the attack. That's why the attack was struggling so much.
Right.
You got a guy that you were counting on to be, a dual 8. There was no dual 8s. There was dual 6s, which Luchi wasn't counting on. And this is something, mind you, he spent the rest of the season trying to basically find someone to replace Santos first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's before you throw in, of course, Hara. That on top of that, and I'm just saying, you've got a guy who's basically sets up his plan, and then you gotta cook, and he's got the menu all set up, and then before you open, you say, sorry, but we donated all the potatoes, so anything you had with you can cross that off the menu.
Right. So Dan Hunt came out of the and had there was an article that when they sold test, when he came out and kind of spoke finally. I think that's the first time I heard him speak all year, and he was saying how it's a balancing act of trying to sell players and trying to remain competitive. Let me ask you guys. I personally think the balance is like this. We're selling money, but we're not really trying to win, right? I mean, it's no way is it like this. It's like this, right?
It is. It's unbalanced, and simply, it's a big red flag for anyone that is going to be offered the managerial job, because they have to look. I mean, I think I was telling Nathan this has any manager in the history of FC Dallas or the Burn had to deal with as many players being sold out from underneath him as
Right.
Luchi has in his reign. Pereira didn't have to go through that,
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, there were a lot of players sold on the Pereira as well.
There were, but not to the extent. It's like it's ramped
Two
up.
very good ones.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
But
Well-
Diaz and Castillo, right? So.
Which did impact their performance. I mean, like, it's hard to recover from that,
Yeah.
Well, Castillo's he kind of forced his way out.
Yeah. But let me throw out some names and some FC Dallas players that used to play, and let's see where they are. Kellen Acosta. He wasn't too good. He wasn't good enough for FC Dallas, right? He's playing for U.S. men's national team.
I think we all understand that he had.
That was also a little drama. And I'm drawing a blank. This guy here, what's his name? I'm forgetting his name. This guy right here, the defender. What's his name?
Oh, who
He's
we
playing.
Oh,
He's playing for U.S.
Oh, Zimmer, huh?
Zimmerman, yes, thank you, Zimmerman.
Oh,
He's
I
playing
thought
for
You were
U.S.
messing with us, but
I didn't realize you were pointing at Zimmerman.
Yeah, I put their heads up, right?
Gresso. I was like, is that Carlos Gresso back?
No. So then you got Michael Barrios coming back and scoring goals against us for Colorado, right? It gets better. We got Peacock coming back who couldn't score or assist for us, scoring against us. How bad has it been? It's as bad as it's ever been here in Dallas. It's terrible. And do I think it's on the coach? No, I think it's on the roster.
Let's
Give
catch
Luchi
up.
credit. I don't think Luchi's ever once said, I don't have the players, right? He always went to battle with his players. I do.
I want to say something that is a knock on Luchi that I felt. I've never really expressed it, but I believe this is something that Luchi would have gotten out had he had time to manage at a lower level before he took over FC Dallas. And it was his belief that whenever he switched formation, it was his belief that the players should be able to play any formation, because it was just positioning and aware, and knowing your roles. And every time we asked him, why'd you run a 3-man back line? Why'd you run this? And he always would say, oh, it's just, the players all know the positions. They all know, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. It's a big deal having your main formation and the players knowing their roles and where they're expected to play, as opposed to, today you're going to be right back and you're going to have dual, but next game you're going to be a right wing back and you don't have to worry about defense. You just go forward. And little things like that, you don't think they have an issue, but it's repetition.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, you can't just, people
used to the formation and the expectations, and the more they do it, the faster they react, the more fluid they are. And that's one thing that I had against Luchi, is that he believed that it didn't matter how he lined them up, they should all still be able to have no drop off.
Well, that's what he told you. That's what he told you, but he may have been hiding the truth is that he didn't have other players to play those positions, and that was his best choice.
I'm just saying that was his.
Yeah, no, I get it, but
and I'm just saying that's something that if he truly believed that, that's something that several years coaching, managing D2 or D3 team would have got him out of.
Well, I guess what I'm going at is that we've seen Ryan Hollingshead play all over the field, right? I mean, we even seen him play keeper, right? But most recently, we had no left winger before Sean came in, right? Do you remember he moved Hollingshead up to left wing and he put Nelson in a left back? That wasn't because of a formation change. That was because he had no players to play those positions, and that was the best he could do.
How Shun played the first couple of games, even though it was clear he wasn't playing.
I was like, why did we sign this guy? But then after he went and came back, and he had those assists, it was great. But then all of a sudden he wasn't starting. So and I think Pat's had a lot to do with that and tactic, but it just.
Well, let's hit some comments and things, and we'll just, if you hear something you want to address, we can talk about it. Our buddy Ben Funch says, to me, the Luchi hire was a hope and a prayer. I do give him credit for playing the young guys this year as an example of what a roster made up of young guys can be. Young players and teams are inconsistent. The past 2 seasons, we relied on defense. And I would agree generally with that, although at times our youngest players have been the more consistent than our veterans. And then let's see, Michael Crossman.
Well, can I comment on that real quick?
Sure.
My question to Ben would be, what if we had our right back was the guy we sold, not Reggie, but Brian Reynolds. Was Reynolds at right back, and we had other players? I mean, I think that we might see different results with Luchi. Selling all these players. Let's take the example. We don't sell Santos. We got Santos in the back. We have Reynolds on the right back. I think that Luchi might come out, I'm for sure knowing that we come out better than we are right now.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, Michael Crossman, thanks for joining the show. It says Luchi was definitely handicapped with roster and transfers, which fall in the front office, but he did, I think he meant to say, did not help himself with his lineup decisions and lack of making a change during a game.
I think I can agree with that, but I also say that oftentimes you're limited. Sure, I agree that he wasn't at top of his game, but because he's limited, he has a smaller window to make an error.
Right, exactly. I'm totally with you there, Jose.
And I think that's the one thing that we have to remember is his window for error was much smaller than had he had a full array of his players weren't being sold or loaned out or whatnot.
Right. He had no room for mistakes. He wasn't getting any goals up top, but he was letting goals in the back because of the roster. Mm-hmm. No room for mistakes.
And yes, our young players, of course, stepped up when our veterans were. But at the same time, now you're forced to start younger players who will be inconsistent at times and disappear in certain matches, and that's just youth. There's no cure for that. Everybody can't be Ricardo Pepi.
Yeah. There's so many good comments here, guys. I mean, and I can't get to them
coming.
all, but he said, Ben says the Hunt's plan is to sell the young guys and rely on MLS-level vets and international signings to actually win games.
And I'm going to disagree with that right now, and I'll tell you why.
Me too.
MLS-level vets would indicate that they have MLS guys on the roster, but Dallas is the only team that doesn't have players from other MLS teams on its roster.
No, they don't.
So they're bringing in guys they perceive to be MLS level, but are unknown quantities like Vargas. He's brought in and, he looked great against the USL Championship guys, but he clearly wasn't MLS level. And O'Brien, same thing. He's perceived to be MLS level. Okay, maybe he is, but then you also have that period where you have to acclimate yourself to the league. So you're not giving Luchi that cushion. You're saying, here's your guys. They don't need acclimation. They're good to go now. Here you go. Put them in. And
the only vets that we have that I can think of would be Hedges and Hollingshead, who have been on the team for quite a while, and Mara, if that's what you're talking about, yes. But they're really relying on signing marginal players that don't make it in the other leagues in Central America and whatever, you know, that they're not starting in Spain. They're coming here because they didn't make it over there, right? Like Martinez,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Well,
But I think the biggest thing, and look, maybe I'm reading this wrong, but they sent out a memo to all the season ticket holders, and it said that we want to get back to winning games, being competitive, and bringing trophies back to North Texas. Nowhere did it say that we wanted to compete for the MLS Cup. You know, we also have North Texas FC. I read into this that if you didn't come out point blank and say that you're out there trying to win MLS Cup, then you're not, you know, you're just trying to be competitive and win trophies for North Texas FC and sell players. In no way that in that they had the opportunity to send it to all the fans that we're out trying to win MLS Cup and be competitive. They did not. It's black and white.
I just want to point out that Ricarte, Obrian, Vargas, Quignon, these are all top players in the leagues they came from. All right? You know, Vargas was a top player in Venezuela. Obrian and
Division 1 or Division 2?
Huh?
I mean, are these like MLS type leagues or?
No, these are all top. I mean, Ricarte was top flight Colombian, you know, top 11. So was Obrian. Vargas was top. You know, there's a reason he gets called into the Venezuelan national team because he was a top player in the top division of Venezuela. Quignon was a top player, you know, for his team, which is a top flight team. These aren't players that you know we expect. Like I said, they brought them in expecting them to be able to hit MLS level in and running, but we don't know that because let's face it, MLS, whether people like it or not, has elevated their level, and it's to the point where you can't just grab a player who's a star from another league in South America and expect him to come in and excel just because he's from South America, and that's where Dallas needs to adjust their scouting.
I was understanding that Vargas was in as a project, that he was, you know, a good talent, and he's definitely a good athlete, but he's not.
He was a top player for his team, and he was definitely a star in the making in Venezuela. He was playing
maybe a different style of soccer where he's, you know, always given one-on-one as opposed to touching and passing in this kind of system.
Well, you can't teach the physicality that you're going to get in MLS. You know, you know, if you're used to playing in a more free-flowing game. I'm just saying you can't just the days of, hey, let's sign a guy from a South American league and he's going to come into MLS and be an instant starter. Those days are long gone, and I don't think Dallas has, you know, learned that yet. You know, they need to say we can't just say, oh, hey, we're going to get this goalkeeper from Gremio and boom, he's going to be your new starting goalkeeper. That doesn't work.
Let me ask this question. Well, we have another one from Ben if you want to go that one.
Well, Ben says, I agree the quality of player matters. We are a development club, and the Kellen experience taught the owners to sell when the offers come from Europe, especially if that is the goal of the player. And I do agree, although some of the history on that is a little fuzzy, that, there was interest from Europe, but there was never an official offer for Kellen. But, you know, it's always hard to know what is true about that, and there was a lot of drama going on in Kellen's life. But I do agree, and also the Weston situation, I think, was one of those that taught FC Dallas that sometimes it's better to sell the player when the offer comes in rather than to wait for some price tag that you think is your valuation. It's always tough to make those choices in this market.
So I do have a question for both of you. Fafal Picot was brought in, and, you know, not Picot. Picot was sold, and we brought in Jader. Which one do you think has performed better, Picard or Jader? Because it's close, but I'm going to say I think Jader has been the better player. I remember when Picard was here, his assist was not there. He kept losing the ball in the final third. He never scored goals.
I remember who we had before Fafa Pico was Roland Lamont, who was also the guy with actually probably a better pedigree than
Baji.
And Baji, yeah, and guys who had their flashes.
Look, here's my answer to Obrian is I think right now, I'm going to tell you it's a push over the whole length of the season. Really, it's a push. But Obrian is coming on now that he's had, you know, he looked like crap the first half of the season. that happens. It takes some players a full half season or entire season to get acclimated. And now you're seeing O'Brien has acclimated to MLS, and now he's starting to look like the player we were promised.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah, I definitely say O'Brien is the better player.
But would you have said that a month ago? The answer is no. A month ago, you would have said, sit that guy.
I would say they both are bad, yeah.
But I'm just saying, O'Brien's finally found his gear. He's finally found his footing. He's finally found this, learned the hard way that you can't simply lay down and complain. You got to dust yourself up and get up right back and get in the flow. And you're starting to see O'Brien make those adjustments, adjusting to the level, expecting to be run over. And he's handling it better. And as a result, he's more dangerous, and that's just, it took time. And I think O'Brien, whoever the new manager is when he comes in next season, is going to be happy to have a player like O'Brien on the roster, because he won't have to go with what Luchi went through of having to get O'Brien acclimated to the rest and the physicality and the different types of fields, the turf, the grass, the long travel. That's really hard.
We don't know what the roster is going to look like with Pepe and Ferreira, because I love both of those guys, and I would be surprised if they're not getting offers for Pepe and Ferreira. But we need to fix the defense too, So, if those guys leave, then man, there's a lot of work to be done on this roster.
But I don't want to get you guys too excited about, hey, we're gonna turn the roster over. I don't expect that. I'm sorry.
You don't think they're going to sell Pepe?
If they're smart, they'll sell him and make sure he gets loaned back to them. And the same thing for any player. I mean, honestly, that's what I would say. You want Chewy, you want Pepe, you got to let us have him for the end of the season.
Well, one thing to consider, these guys know Luchi backwards and forwards. They've been with Luchi for ages now. It's, a comfort zone, and now they've lost that.
And I imagine they know Marco as well. I imagine that there's a relationship there. But I mean,
Marco's interim. We'll see if he's
comfort can be your enemy sometimes. Sometimes you need a guy that's going to come in and demand you, that doesn't know you and demands more from you.
Yeah, good.
And change is good sometimes.
Gives you a sense of you're not always going to have a coach that's known you since you were a little guy and is proud of you, and
sure.
And Luchi always was. Sometimes coaches are going to be hard as hell on you and are going to ask you to do things that make you uncomfortable. But it is hard now. I mean, just to get your question, I'm coming around on O'Brien. I think he has a role on this team, whether it's always as a starter. But I think to Jose's point, the days are over when you could just go get a fast guy, a fast player from wherever, and that'd be a really productive piece on your team. And that was a different era. Now it's there's a lot of guys that are pretty fast out there, a lot of defenders who are not going to be so easily beat. You're going to have your good timing, some good soccer smarts. So we'll see. But going back to last year, Afafo was terrible. It just was.
Yeah, it was terrible. And the fact that he scored goals on us just shows how bad we are. I know that a couple of them were PKs, right? And, I mean, that's how bad our defense is coming. We're letting Picault score on us. Because I tell you, Picault is not good.
Durf says, I think O'Brien is going to be great next year, and I hope so too. And Ben Funch comes back and says, I put the biggest fault on ownership.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm going to tell you something. I want to add something on that. I want to say that the Hunts had the right idea. Their idea was, we're going to have this great academy, and then we're going to come, from within, get the homegrown and stuff like that. The problem with their approach is that MLS keeps growing. So they're setting up for, their game plan is for MLS is today. We're going to do this to be competitive. But MLS next year will have new rules, new DP rules, stuff like that. MLS is always moving the goalpost forward, and you can't plan for the current MLS ever. And I just feel like that's what the Hunts are doing. They're saying, oh, hey, we're going to do this, do that, and we're going to be competitive, with MLS next year. We're going to be better than everybody else. That's not the way it works. MLS is constantly moving the goalposts, and I just feel like the Hunts are not keeping up with that. They're not. They have some advantages. Like you said, you got the academy, and I think the level of talent coming out of the academy 5 years ago would help them dominate. But that's not the case anymore, because now you've got more teams spending more money, bringing in bigger name DPs, and now other academies are starting to produce. So that would have been a huge advantage 5 years ago. Is not a huge advantage today.
The other thing is the MLS schedule with the other parts of the world. They want our players in the middle of our season. If the Hunts could just stop selling players mid-season and do it in season and do it with a plan, I think we would be more, acceptance of that. That you have a plan and you're not doing it mid-season. It's kind of counterproductive to getting people in the seats.
And the further point on that is, you're selling players, and there's clearly no player lined up to be brought in to replace that player. It's like, okay, we're going to sell Pepe mid-season, and then we'll start looking for his replacements.
No, we'll wait till next year in the third week of the season to start looking.
Well, they start looking, but they probably won't sign him until the next year. But the point is it seems to me that when they do sell somebody, they haven't been looking for the guy to replace him. They should have somebody already lined up saying, okay, if Reynolds is gone, we've already got a right back that we've been in contact with the agent, and boom, this is going to be the guy that comes in. Instead of,
they got lucky with Reggie and Brian Reynolds being ready to go, because Brian Reynolds really had no competition,
Well, I don't want to say they got lucky, because those kids were talented, and they had, they have abilities that running back, you don't know.
No, lucky means that they were around, not they were lucky on the field. They were lucky to have them around because they were talented.
I think they were not lucky to have them around. I think they were lucky that they didn't leave at a younger age, like
Kenny. Yeah, okay.
Because Cannon opted to go to college. He could have said, "No, I'm going to go sign." He could have gone tried out for Europe right there and then. And same thing with Reynolds. I think Reynolds got signed pretty young, actually. So, that's. I don't want to say that's luck. I'm just saying that's them. Basically, that's the fallout from the whole McKinney leaving the team. That they went out and basically signed all these kids when they were teenagers, all these panic homegrown buys like Seeley and Reynolds. They went out and said, "Okay, we got to make sure this does not happen again." It's still happening, but that's more roster limitations than anything.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see because I know Ferruzzi's been around for a long time. I love Ferruzzi. He's been with Pereira. It's going to be interesting what he does with this lineup and how he coaches the games compared to what Luchi did, where how he subs players, how he does this and that. It's going to be interesting to see how players react to him. Do they come out and play? Yeah.
What does Ferruzzi have to do?
Good question.
To be given a job next year.
And Hunt made it clear in the press conference that he really wanted to see the defense shored up, which
That's, to me,
but what do you think? What do you think Ferruzzi would have to do that you could then turn around to the fans and say, okay, this guy is going to be your coach going forward?
If he wins every game from here on out, or he gets him in the playoffs at least.
So just get him to the playoffs, boom.
Yeah, I think Dan
Hunt. Number one, he's got to have his players show up and be ready to play. No flat footing, as Nathan mentioned before. That's happening in Luchi. That's happening in Luchi.
I don't think him making the playoffs is enough. I think he has to make a run in the playoffs. I think he has to. I think most FCD fans expect to be in the playoffs, and if he gets them there, they'll be like, "Oh well, he just achieved expectations."
I think my understanding is we got to win like almost all our games to make the playoffs, right? Isn't it?
It's not going to happen.
Yes, but if you make the playoffs and then crash and burn in the first match of the playoffs, then what have you really achieved other than hey?
Well,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, good point.
Well, let's see how his lineup is, but he's got to have solid defense. No unmarking like we had the other day in Houston, where 6 people attacking on 4, cross, pass, open goal, in the box, point blank range. That can't happen. That cannot happen as a coach, right?
Yeah.
Especially 5 minutes into the game. If you're pushing up and you're trying to get a goal late in the game, that might happen, but not in 5 minutes of the game. And see, just see better, we'll see what happens under.
We'll see. I think he has to not just make the playoffs. I think he has to make a run in the playoffs, win a couple of games in the playoffs, and then he'll be the guy. But I think even if he makes the playoffs, he makes an incredible run, we get some help, and we exit.
That's if he wants it. We're all assuming that he wants it.
Well,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, there's that. But I'm just saying, what makes him as a guy you can bring to the fans and go, here's your guy?
Hey, I got to ask a question. There's another coach that was let go. There were all remained, but there was another coach. Do you know anything about the coach that was let go and why?
His assistant, is it Veras?
Yeah.
He was the director of scouting too, wasn't he? He was his assistant. Yeah, he was also let go.
Yeah,
and I don't know.
It was kind of like putting the blame on, it was like, but keep the other guys.
Yeah, Ben says, I think if he gets 18 points from the 8 games, the Hunts will take a hard look at him as head coach for next year. And now, I mean, this is why the cynicism comes in as an FC Dallas fan, because part of me says, reading Hunt's things, I get my cynical side would be like, hey, Dan Hunt would love nothing more to make this an easy decision where he avoids criticism. So if Marco just turns this team around, they gel, they gut out some results, they make their way in the playoffs, that Dan Hunt can say, we don't need to have a searching coach. A coach search, sorry. We can just, Marco is it. He earned us a chance for a year or two to see where he can lead this team.
Well,
and he earned it.
I'm going to throw a little water at any fan out there that's thinking that we're going to get a marquee coach. You got to ask yourself, is FC Dallas a marquee opening? No. And it's not. I'm sorry. There's no coach out there, no big name manager saying, oh my God, I can't wait to go to Dallas and MLS. I'm sorry. We're not a marquee market. And the Hunts have everything to do with that because, let's face it, there's no big name DPs on this roster and never have been, and there's no sign that there ever will be. So there goes that. You're not going to get someone who coached Barcelona or PSG or anyone like that saying, I want to go there.
Plus, who's going to want to come coach when they're selling players midseason? I'm not aware that it happens so rampant as it does here at FC Dallas and other MLS teams that we consistently sell players. Yeah.
If you're a coach that aspires to be a winner in MLS and use yourself as a springboard to Europe, like Jesse March or someone like that, you're not going to want to come to FC Dallas. You're going to say, hey, that's, unless they're going to gamble on themselves because they're going to say, hey, that's not going to be a stable, volatile. Yes, there's a lot of talent. There is a lot of talent. But if they're going to keep, if I'm going to keep losing players left and right to sales and not getting. And
then you're going to judge me on those results, right?
Yes.
You're going to, yes.
It's got to be somebody that's so confident in themselves. It's got to be somebody that is confident that they can come in and take this talent and get everybody from all the way down to the academy playing his way, that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I mean, what if you come in to sign the paper to be the coach and you say, hey, we're going to continue to sell players. We're going to continue to do this.
But that's it.
That's kind of what Luchi signed up for. I mean, him being fired is kind of, we all knew that this was the way that the club was going, unfortunately.
I think Luchi expected there to be sales, but I don't think he expected to be the amount of sales that there were.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect to be so much bad at bringing players in that couldn't play,
Look,
not ready to play.
The biggest turnover that Pareja had to deal with was after the collapse. All right? That's the truth. That's the one time where they went out and made multiple changes. But before that, he didn't have to deal with that many players exiting. Luchi has to deal with that every year. Every year there's an exodus of talent.
And Luchi's on board with it, right?
Yeah, no, he had to be on board.
Yes.
He never complained about it.
I'm not saying he wasn't. I'm sure they were upfront. My point is, any manager that comes in has to accept that. Yeah. Has to accept that, hey, there will be an exodus of talent. You'll have talent around you, but you better have your number 2 ready to go, because your number 1, you're playing him, he's playing good, we're shopping him.
Yeah.
You know,
Crazy.
we've got a big glass.
You're suggesting that Lucian's going to be the coach next year.
Yeah, Ben
That's
says
one from
that
France.
maybe Peter Luchin
Oh,
gets
no, it's going to be the undefeated, no loss manager, and that would be Michel. So
yeah, you know what? It's going to be somebody like that. You know,
and they're like, we got to have somebody that's more handsome than and better dressed than Luchi and has a better record.
Yeah, I would be okay with Ferruzzi. I know that Ferruzzi's got the skins on the wall. I mean, you know, Luchi didn't have the skins on the wall. He did it at the academy, but he never did it at a professional level, not even as assistant. And you don't see that anywhere where they skip the assistant level.
Let me ask you, who would you like to see them sign? Realistically, I don't mean like some dream signature.
For coach?
Who would you like to see FC Dallas sign?
For coach?
For manager, yeah. If you had to say, who would your guy be?
Well, I don't know all the managers left and right to tell you, but I'm okay with Ferruzzi being the manager if they're going to give him players. It doesn't really matter at that point. I mean, even if it's Luchi, I would be okay with Luchi being the coach if we're not going to sell players in midfield and in mid-season. You know, I don't care who the coach is. You continue to do that, no one's going to win.
Hey, what about you, Nathan?
Yeah, and I think it's hard. I mean, I really there's a couple of names out there that I'm thinking about. I of course like an idea of FC Dallas going to Bayern and saying, look, we have a relationship already. Let's make it.
That's a great idea.
A deeper relationship, and so we also know that like the coach that's going to be here with us is going to be, and I know this won't please fans in some ways, but like, hey, we want you to send an up and coming coach that you think highly of. That he's gonna get some experience over here with us, and then you can get him back over. Okay. You know, but he's gonna bring some reputation.
I'm just gonna tell you, Nathan, that I hate that idea, just because you're immediately the first thing that any MLS fan will think is you guys are now officially a reserve club for Bayern. You're no better. You're just basically. We're
a reserve club for all of Europe.
Right now, we're a reserve club for the rest of MLS at this point, you know. But no, I mean, I hear you. I think that's the downside, but that's why it would need to be like. I mean,
I'm just saying we might as well be New York Red Bull or NYCFC. You know, it's basically.
I wouldn't mind being like that if it's going to be like a competitive team. You know, it goes back to the point. If you're going to get rid of the players 2 weeks before season starts, no.
I would say I would be down with that if Bayern starts sending us players. But if that's not going to happen,
I think that would have to be part of the equation, and as well as that being the pitch to South American talent and other key talent. Like, look, you're not just coming here just to get your leg into MLS, but like you're going to be looked at by Bayern staff. You're going to be, you might end up somewhere else, but there's going to be a pathway here, and I think the team has built up some potential of that with these moves, but because I agree at this point, even though Dallas should be one of the premier soccer markets,
absolutely,
at this point, we're not Atlanta, we're not LAFC, Los Angeles Galaxy, or even New York. I mean, we don't have some of that, you know. So it's going to be tough, and I just don't like the idea of them going to get an MLS guy unless it's a guy who has a track record of really turning straw into gold.
I'd rather have Ferruzzi.
Yeah, and I mean, Ferruzzi, I don't have anything against him. I think he'll get his shot over these next 8 games. And that is a decent opportunity. Maybe that's why Dan Hunt said, look, let's give this guy a run. He's been loyal. Let's see what he does. If it doesn't work out, he returns to his director of operations, and we go look for the next guy. Sure. If he shows something, we have another candidate to take a hard look at, you know? I don't know.
I've got 2 guys. One that's the Hunt, you know, the in line with the Hunt signings that, you know, It's a guy with connections to FC Dallas, either as a player, as a manager, or an assistant that fits the Hunt signing MO. And for me, I've said it to Nathan, but I'd like to see Josema Bazan brought in from Orlando. I mean, this guy's been a long-time assistant, many years. He's very experienced. He knows MLS. He knows the academy, and he's been gone enough that he's going to be able to come in and take a fresh look, and the players will know who he is, but not be cozy, familiar like they were with Luchi. And that's, for me, if it's somebody that has FC Dallas connections, that's my preference. Now, my out of the ballpark, not a Hunt signing, would be basically if they're saying Sanota is going to run this, then bring in a Sanota guy, and that would be Renato Gaucho, was the manager for Gremio when Sanota was there, who took him to and won Copa Libertadores when they were there. And I think that's a player that that's a manager I'm saying. I think he's currently signed to
Flamengo.
I
thought it's his cherished club.
Yeah,
Flamengo.
But I'm just saying Sonora's got the connections with him, and I would be like, hey, if you have to give him, I think it's unrealistic because you'd have to give them a buyout of some kind. But I'm just saying it would also show that, hey, that would actually show that you're going in a different direction and say, hey,
sure,
look, we didn't get the big European guy, but we've got a Copa Libertadores winning guy from Gremio, with Gremio connections, with South American, and mind you, this is the guy you're going to be pitching to players you're trying to sign from South America. A known winner, a guy who's won in Brazil, in South America. I think that's would be a great signing for FC Dallas. And if they have to do a buyout to get him, that shows that you were willing to go the extra mile to get your guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those are my two guys. One of those two guys, and I'll be a happy man.
Not gonna happen.
Our buddy Ben says Hedges, player coach. Yes, I'm joking. But...
Well, which reminds me. I asked Nathan this, and it's like, give me your managerial signing that shows us that it's the sign of the apocalypse is upon us.
Oh.
You take that as it wish. Maybe it's a manager so bad that you would quit being a fan of the team, or that you think is the completely wrong guy for the job. I mean, basically a managerial signing that is the sign that the apocalypse is upon us.
I have two that come to mind immediately, although, I probably wouldn't stop watching the team. I mean, I'd probably have to stick around just to see. But, of course, I came to be a fan of this team during the Shellis Hyndman years, and, I think that ended in a disaster. He'd be an awful coach for this generation of players.
Great choice. How about you?
But also, I would add Jurgen Klinsmann. I think it would be an interesting, and it might not be all bad. I think Jurgen deserves some respect. But I remember some of the USM and United States men's national team stories where he had these guys doing yoga.
He would be great news
yogurt
in Dallas. I
guarantee
it. Maybe not great
motivational speakers and.
It's funny you mentioned Hyman because that's when I moved to the area, and that's when FC Dallas was at that time. Their roster was very thin. They didn't have a bench. I mean, you didn't see many subs because you didn't have a bench.
Yeah, but he didn't.
But they relied on older players to come in.
He didn't play the kids at all.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. And they would sign these players that were 35 years old to come in that were good at their time, but they were and you always say I want to see them go young. We got that now, but the problem is we said this a million times already. Don't sell players mid-season.
The question, you're tippy-toeing around it. I'll tell you my sign of the Pockets of Parta signing, and Ben will love this. Franco Jara, player coach.
No, I think if we sell Pepe, and our striker next year.
$3 million earnings and the fact that he's not starting, we
Yeah,
might as
why
well just
not?
make him manager.
He'll get up frustrated and come on in the game in the last 15
Fan would
minutes.
immediately quit becoming an FC Dallas fan.
You can tell Howard's just lost a step. I mean, you could tell he was a great player in his time, and he's still not bad, but he's not. He lost a step.
Like he hasn't lost his step.
Yeah, he's not a $3 million player, so
Well,
I don't see him.
Question. Come on now.
It's been over.
Oh, Puckus, yeah.
It's been over an hour. Let's wrap up
All
the
right.
show. I mean, we could keep going on and as we
I have
dissect
a hard
this.
time sleeping because I'm all wound up now.
I know, but well,
We're gonna
last
have to take
question.
Nyquil or something.
Let's just shift our attention to this game this coming weekend as FC Dallas travels up to Vancouver. It's
Horrible team, by the way.
a horrible team. That this should be a potential 3 points, but of course, anytime you're playing away, it's just tough. It's just tough in this league. Can FC Dallas get the win? Is this going to be the kind of game where the team really rallies and puts together a complete performance after a coaching change, or are we just going to see more evidence that there's just missing pieces on this roster?
I'm gonna
What's your gut?
I'm gonna say I would be satisfied with a draw as long as they put up a fight and don't give up any stupid goals. But clearly, it's a must-win. Like you said, every match going forward is a must-win. So it would be it'd be a horrible debut if you go out there and fall down and get beat by Vancouver.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't look good either if it was a draw. Sorry.
I would expect Ferruzzi to change the defense to be more staying back, not go up. Luchi had a tendency to have their tag too high and press too high and get beat. So I'm thinking that Ferruzzi was going to play it back and not let them score and take the chances and score when the counter exists, but more selective attacking and not just leave yourself vulnerable. I think under Ferruzzi, and I think that under Ferruzzi you're going to see the players come out not flat-footed, and being that he's a veteran coach. He's been around for a while. He won't take any of that.
Yeah, I mean, we have no idea what to expect. I mean, it's probably going to be something similar to what we've seen if when Ferruzzi was and it was.
I have to say that what you were describing is we're going to be conservative on the road.
No, we're not going to be. We're not going to. Not necessarily.
Sorry, but that's what it sounds like to me. I mean, it's.
We were not conservative in Houston. In 5 minutes in, we were down 1-0. I don't think in 5 minutes in the game we're going to be down 1-0. I would say.
My gut is that Dan Hunt told Luchi, "We need to win this weekend," and so that's why Luchi felt that pressure to just tell the guys to go for it, and as well as feeling like we need to get some momentum going for the playoffs here. But that's what I'm curious about. But I think there's going to be a lot more story about this Luchi firing that's going to come out, little tidbits here and there as we go.
The truth has not come out.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised to see something strange, like what if Ferruzzi comes out with a 4-4-2, a classic 4-4-2. You move Obrian back further a little bit. Shun plays more of that left midfield, and then you have like Ferreira and Pepe up top, or Hara and Pepe. I mean, I don't know
if we
that's
get Paxton in the middle, I know my friend Kirk will be like, I've been saying this all year. I want Paxton in the middle. Everyone's saying, why is Paxton on the wing?
I'm going to tell you right now, he's going to come out with a 4-2-3-1.
Which
I don't know.
And if he starts Paxton as the 10, all the FCD fans will just be flipping out, saying, "Thank God."
I'd love to see it. I would love to see it. I think that's the challenge of what Luchi has been living with, and we've all been watching. Is just like, you got some talent on this roster, and even a guy like Ricarte, we mentioned him earlier. Like he's a talented guy, but he's always been played. It's just, has he been employed correctly? And there's so many questions like this that we may see these guys depart, and we may have wondered what if we had a coach that put them in the right place, or maybe they were just never going to work out anyway. So it's going to be interesting to see what Ferruzzi does on this short week of practice, how he approaches the team, what he gets out of the team. Obviously, I think you got to go for 3 points. A draw is probably okay. You probably take a draw if you go down early and you fight back. I hope they put together a great performance, and so we get a little momentum going. I don't know.
Yeah, I know the game before Houston, I thought the attack was pretty good. There was a lot of dynamic passing going on in the final third between Pepe and Ferreira, and I was like, wow, they're doing very well. Even Jader. It was just the defense has been a problem all year.
Yeah. That'll be an interesting thing to see what he does. And it'd be very convenient if Hollingshead gets healthy and you get some guys back. It would be a big boost. And you'll wonder then, too, like, why
It'd
not
be
give
very
Luchi?
amusing if Ferruzzi gets a fully healthy lineup
Right. Yeah.
for the rest of the season, and Luchi's sitting there going, God, I wish I had that when I was there.
Right. Well, we need to leave it there. Appreciate all the comments tonight, all the questions, all the reactions. Jose, Tommy, thanks for joining us tonight. What a
My
season
pleasure.
it's
Thanks
been.
for asking.
Rev,
Anytime.
Yeah, all right, and of course I'll upload the audio tonight to our Anchor site, and you can find it where you can find podcasts if you want to listen later on. And we'll see you next Monday night. Okay, good night, everybody.
good night.